Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar session. Thank you all for providing your precious time. I wish that everyone are fine at their home and they are safe. Based on students' feedback and interest, today we have arranged a webinar on regulatory affairs and its importance in biopharma industry. As an invited speaker, today we have Mr. Lalit Mohan. Mr. Lalit is currently working in Bangalore as a regulatory affair manager. Mr. Lalit has experience of plus 8 years, and in the past he has been associated with multinational companies such as Alpha Pharma, which is in UAE. Mr. Lalit has experience of drug product filing for both regulated as well as semi-regulated markets. In today's webinar, he will be sharing the regulatory affairs scenario in current industry as well as a career for our young pharmacists. So taking not much of your time, I welcome Mr. Lalit to deliver his webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu, and thank you, Concepts, for this introduction and also for giving me opportunity to speak on regulatory affairs and its importance. And thanks to all participants for joining on Sunday and also the solar eclipse day. So I really appreciate their presence. So let's start our webinar on regulatory affairs. Please move to next slide. So I have cut short the title. So I kept the title as Regulatory Affairs and its importance in biopharma industry. I kept the picture here. So it is actually bridging the gap between the industry and the regulatory agencies. So that is the basic meaning of regulatory affairs or regulatory affairs professional. Next slide, please. So I just want to put a disclaimer here. All these views and opinions which I present in this webinar are my own and not representing any of my entities which I have been affiliated or will be affiliated. And the pictures and content are taken from publicly available sites and documents. I request all the participants to keep on mute, and also if you have any queries during the presentation, I request them to keep it at the end so that we can discuss all the queries. And if there is any burning query, you can put it in the chat or in the questionnaire and we will speak on that questions also. So next slide, please. So the topics which I will be speaking in this webinar, first I will talk briefly about the product cycle and drug development, also about the clinical trials, and then what is regulatory affairs and what we deal, what is its importance, and why we need to regulate the drug development, and what is the requirement for harmonizing the regulatory. After that, I will speak about integrated product development, what is CTD, what is ECTD, and the product life cycle, what is the perspective in each part, in each steps of the product life cycle. Then I will speak about the strategy and regulatory perspective, and then about regulatory intelligence, various roles in regulatory affairs, and what we do daily, the daily work life of a regulatory affairs professional, and the brief summary at the end. So coming to the first slide, product life cycle. Most of the information what I'm speaking, maybe some people already know because they are working in industry, and some people already in regulatory affairs. Keeping in mind about all the audience, like some are college students, some are industry freshers. So keeping all those in mind, I just want to make them understand with good pictures which are available in Google. And I will start with the basics, and I'll cover the regulatory affairs topics and also the importance and what is the main roles of a regulatory affairs professional. So in this slide, what I would like to present to you all is the product life cycle, starting from the discovery and development to the post-marketing safety monitoring. There are several steps and there's so much of time involved in getting a new medicine into the market. It is a very long road. First, the development, it starts with discovery and then development. Development includes the clinical, preclinical, and then clinical trials, and then the submission to FDA or to any health authority, and then the review, approval. After approval, maintaining the product in the market, and surveillance of the product in the market. That is the post-market safety monitoring. So if we see all these steps, we can classify the regulatory submissions or the regulatory part into two parts, like the pre-market and the post-market. Pre-market is just before the approval of a product, and post-market is after the approval of a product. Yeah, so next slide, please. Here is the drug development, various, what is steps involved in the drug development cycle and what are the phases in the clinical trials. I just want to give a brief before I start with regulatory affairs. So first, the sponsor or starts the laboratory testing or the discovery of a new molecule or a new product, screening of those things, and preclinical trials, animal studies. Then it will start with the submission of investigative new drug application, IND, or clinical trial application for conducting the first in human trials. Then it starts with the phase 1. The phase 1 deals with the first time in humans with healthy volunteers, less than 100 in number. What we do in phase 1 trials, we need to get the pharmacokinetic study data and also the toxicology levels of the molecule. And then it will pass on. If it passes, then it will goes to phase 2 level of clinical trials. So these are phase 2 or first time in patients. It is the new product or molecule in the patients, and with the target disease patients, we need to get demonstrate the safety and efficacy of the drug product. And the number of patients ranges from 100 to 300. We will define the dose and dosage form in the phase 2 of the clinical trials. So once the phase 2 also passes, then it will move on to the phase 3. Phase 3 is an expanded patient population. We will get the indication and labeling. We will demonstrate with proper data for the safety and efficacy on thousands of patients. And there are several types of trials, clinical trials like multi-center trials, randomized trials, which is a huge topic which can be covered in the later. So next is phase 4, which is after approval of a drug product, which is nothing but post-marketing studies. Why these are required? We need to ensure the safety of a product in the actual use in the public. So we need to ensure the pharmacovigilance, and we need to see if there are any new indications, off-labeling use, and for any new diseases or any new populations, pharmacoeconomic kind of studies. All these studies will be part of phase 4. Next slide, please. So now coming to what is regulatory affairs. So basically, why I kept the word good just is not good enough. So we involve a lot of time and huge amount of money in the discovery and development of a molecule in order to get it into the market. So if we do any mistake in presenting it to the health authority or in showing them what we do, what we did, and what we have developed to the health authority, if they will reject our application and they will not approve our product, and all the time and all the amount of money will get wasted. So we just need to be excellent or more than good in part of regulatory affairs. So that's why regulatory affairs in any company has to be more than good, that is excellent. We have to present it in a simple, logical, and very detailed manner so they understand our product and it get approved quickly. So, previous slide, please. Yeah. So at all the steps in a pharmaceutical product, beginning from the R&D, clinical trial, submission, manufacturing of a product, labeling, advertising, distribution of a product, reimbursement, and post-marketing surveillance. In all the steps of a pharmaceutical product, regulatory affairs has to be involved, and they has to lead the product into the market, and also after the approval, they have to keep the product more time in the market for gaining more amount of money what they spent in the beginning of discovery and development. All those things a regulatory affairs professional or a team of or a group has to take care in any company. So why, and as Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you just don't understand it well enough. So we need to explain it in a simple way and in a common format to any health authority as per the stipulated guidelines in order to get it approved, so that the health authority will understand, will come to know that we understand and we developed it well enough, and they will get it approved. That is a major role of a regulatory affairs professional. Next slide, please. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So regulatory affairs, we need we need to bridge the gap between the company and the authority. What we do, the company regulatory affairs in terms of company perspective, we need to get the new medicines and changes of the already approved medicines should be approved by the health authority as soon as possible and placed and kept on the market as much time as possible. That is the company perspective of regulatory affairs. Regulatory affairs, whereas authority perspective, they need to assess the documentation which we submit with the registration or change in the application, and also the surveillance of all the medicinal products in the market. That is the regulatory affairs perspective from the authority or health authority or regulatory affairs authority level. And basically, what is regulatory affairs? It is the knowledge and application of strategic and operational enforcement of the legal framework. It is a science. Regulatory is a science which involves the legal, the guidelines, business, statistics, and the discussion, and also the maintenance. Basically, it is an overall set of a project management where it is a profession within the regulatory industries such as our pharmaceuticals and medical devices. So as per Wikipedia, it responsibility for the following general areas. As per Wikipedia, it is ensuring that the company complies with all of the regulations and laws. And also we need to work with federal, state and local regulatory agencies for specific issues affecting their business, and also advising the companies on regulatory aspects and the climate that would affect proposed activities. So basically, it is a profession with regulated industries such as pharmaceutical and medical devices, and it involves the legal and also the business, statistics, liaison with health authorities, everything which we need to ensure to get the product into the market and also to keep in the market for a longer time. Next slide, please. So RA is clearly responsible and accountable for what, and what RA professional or regulatory affairs team do. As I told in the previous slide, regulatory is a science, deals with licensing, marketing, legal compliance, statistics, and discussion with health authorities. As a regulatory professional, we need to ensure adherence and compliance to all the regulations. We need to liaise with the health authorities, the manufacturers, and the CROs. Negotiation and persuasion, which is the important part of regulatory affairs. We need to negotiate with the health authority and we need to persuade them to get the product approved and launch the product in the market as soon as possible. Taking the strategic decisions and providing the technical advice to the company. We need to maintain the regulatory intelligence and devise the strategies for keeping the product into the market as soon as possible, and also to render the competition from the other companies. So RA is clearly responsible and accountable for what? Establishing global regulatory strategies for long-term development objectives. We need to ensure the long-term development objectives and also necessary activities. Developing and maintaining appropriate and strategic and operational information in our organization and also outside. So project forecast and annual long-term functional needs. Effectively interface with all functions or stakeholders. Regulatory affairs professional has to interact with all the functions and stakeholders of get them involved and ensure that to get the data, verify the data, something the data to get the product up. So as a regulatory affairs professional, we need to including the preparation of the dossiers or what all, and organize the regulatory activities linked to the project duties like outsourcing. Sometimes we need to deal with outsourcing people, sometimes we need to deal with consultants, and also with all the stakeholders involved in the company like quality assurance, quality control, R&D, marketing team, supply chain team. So starting from the submission phase towards ending the post-submission, like post-marketing surveillance, all the stages of your product life cycle, regulatory affairs team has to be involved. Next slide, please. Why regulation is required? Why regulatory affairs is required? So, any medicine is not safe. Even for example, paracetamol, if we take more than required amount of dose, it will cause the liver damage, as you all know. So there is no medicine which is not having any risk. Okay? All the medicines has to be taken in a regulated dose, then only it will work. So regulations are required just to ensure proper dose, proper manufacturing, proper things, considering the risk and benefit of that product. So the health authority will evaluate the risk and benefit of a particular medicinal product to get approved. So the Paracelsus is a Swedish pharmacist, where he believes in a methodology. All substances are poison. There is none which is not poison. So basically, the dose makes the poison. Next slide, please. So all regulators evaluate the products based on the risk-benefit ratio. It is a gold standard for any regulatory authority to evaluate product, what is the benefit and what is the risk. Products for life, sometimes there are some life-threatening disease and unmet medical, example COVID. So during that times, what the regulators will see, they will see more benefit even though the product is having more risk. For example, yesterday we received approval for Glenmark, favipiravir, right? Fabiflu. Even though it is under the clinical trials last stage, they have given the approval for them because considering the unmet needs, we are in a pandemic situation. They already proved there is some safety and efficacy based on the preclinical and already completed clinical trials. They have given the emergency approval for Fabiflu. So what they will do, sometimes they will also consider the greater benefits than the risks. That is a gold standard for all regulators to evaluate the products.
Lalit, sorry to disturb you. I mean, your voice is somewhat cracking, so maybe.
Fine now?
You continue. If there is any issue, then we will just let you know again because the voice is not clear properly.
Please check now if it is fine, otherwise I'll change it again. Okay, so let me continue. Previously, there are some instances in the past, there are some instances like thalidomide disaster and also diethylene glycol poisoning, where there were no regulatory agencies and there were no regulations. So because of those disasters, slowly the Europe and the US and they started developing the regulations and they started forming the regulatory agencies. Because there is no unified regulations. That's why the regulation should be harmonized and all the technical requirements required for marketing of pharmaceuticals need to be harmonized. Because of that, there is some proper justification for the harmonization requirements. So the main health regulatory agencies like ICH, FDA, and EMA, they started harmonizing the guidelines and scientific requirements for the scientific and technical requirements for the marketing. They have formed a group, and basically it is ICH, International Council for Harmonization. Basically, it is founded in 1990. It is like unique harmonization initiative for regulatory authorities and pharmaceutical association. Their major mission is to create a harmonization worldwide to ensure safe, effective, and medicines. And also they develop guidelines for safety, efficacy, quality, and multidisciplinary, which are the unified guidelines, the harmonized guidelines. Every region has to follow that in order to get the product approved in cross regions. So what is the reason? Why should harmonization is required? Because of more efficient regulatory review and also reduces time to get a product to the market. It promotes efficiency in drug development and avoids duplication of studies because Europe follows one regulations and US follows another regulations, and there is no proper format for developing and for showing our data. So they harmonized the guidelines and they came up with one set of guidelines. They will develop the guidelines. They will take the consensus from all the agencies and from all the health authorities. It's still not clear, right?
Yeah, voice is a bit not clear.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, it's clear now.
Okay, please check now and please put a message if it is clear now.
Now it is clear. I mean, better than before.
Okay, okay, thank you. So next slide, please. So ICH, Harmonizing Regulatory Science through International Council for Harmonization. They have developed guidelines for quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary. And who are the members for ICH? As of April 2020, these are the members of ICH. There are some founding regulatory members like US FDA, European Commission, and Japanese authority. And there are founding industry members also, like Pharmaceutical Members Association. These are also permanent management committee members. There are some standing regulatory members like Swiss Medic and Health Canada. Elected members are also there. Industry members are also there. These are the new members since the reforms. There are some reforms which take place in the ICH, and these are also the permanent members of ICH. Elected management committee members, regulatory members like Taiwan FDA, Chinese FDA, and also Korean FDA, ANVISA Brazil, and the industry members like Global Self-Care Federation. These are the new permanent members of ICH. Next slide, please. So there are some observers for ICH. CDSCO India is also ICH observer, which is not a permanent member. There are some standing observers like WHO. Some regional harmonization initiatives also taken place in 90s and 2000 decade in various regions. For example, Gulf Cooperation Council. So what they do, they have harmonized guidelines wherein all the GCC regions will follow that guidelines, like Oman, Kuwait, Qatar, all those regions in the Gulf, they follow the GCC Council guidelines. They have harmonized for their region because they don't have well-developed guidelines in the past. So there is also Asian region, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, where these countries, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, they have also harmonized their regional guidelines. Next slide, please. These are some regional regulatory authorities. I have mentioned here the links also for the various guidelines issued by US FDA, the current US FDA guidances, and also ICH guidances, Code of Federal Regulations. And here I have provided the link wherein you can find the RAPS link. RAPS is Regulatory Affairs Professional Society, which is a professional society for US colleagues. RAPS, I have given a link of RAPS wherein we can find the essential list of regulatory authorities in Asia. Next slide, please. Now coming to integrated product development. So what is integrated product development? Consider development, discovery and development, everything as a project. It's a project management. And what are the different teams involved in the product development? So integration of all the teams is required for a product to launch.
right? So this is the integrated product development team, which consists of all the departments of a pharmaceutical company. So research and development, marketing, manufacturing team, clinical affairs, quality assurance, business development, supply chain, whereas regulatory is a key and central, which plays central role to ensure the data which is coming from all the departments to lead to a marketing approval. So the major function or the major role of regulatory is to ensure the data are leading to a marketing approval. Next slide, please. So here is the integrated product development plan. What we, this is a general concept considering the big pharma industries. So we need to think first, what is our end? What is our goal? So we have to develop a product profile. Target product profile is nothing but a draft package insert. We see in the package inserts in all the drug products, right? In all the products. So we need to develop a draft package insert. What is our end goal? So where are we leading to? Where are we heading to? Which one we need to develop? And what is our markets? And what is the advantages, side effects, and interactions? All those, like a draft package insert, we need to develop. Based on that, we need to develop a clinical development plan and then a preclinical development plan. So we have to consider what is our clinical development plan first, and then we will develop preclinical plan, then the CMC development plan, which is nothing but chemistry, manufacturing, and controls development plan. Basically, all these involves regulatory development plan, which is nothing but a integrated product development plan involving the preclinical, clinical, CMC, overall a regulatory development plan. So it is a living document which we need to follow during the product life cycle. Next slide, please. So here comes the data. What is CTD? I will discuss about CTD in the next slides also. So basically, it's all about the data. If the data are not accurate, nothing else matters. We need to ensure the data coming from all the departments is accurate and well enough to get the marketing authorization, right? So this is a common technical document which has been provided by the Harmonization of ICH. ICH has provided the CTD structure, which is a common format wherein we need to develop the data as per this format and submit to the health authorities in marketing applications. For example, in US, we submit NDA, new drug application, biological license application. In EU, it is called marketing authorization application. Japanese NDA, Canada new drug submission. So these are the marketing applications wherein we submit the data in this format. Next slide, please. So what is common technical document and what is dossier? Okay, dossier is a collection or file of documents that contain all the technical data of pharmaceutical product to be approved or registered or marketed in the country. So as I told, the common technical document, it is a format where it is divided into 5 modules, module 1, module 2, 3, 4, 5. So each module has certain information we need to include in the dossier. Dossier is a set of files which contain the technical data, whatever we have developed, we have manufactured, all those data we need to cover in certain format which is called common technical document. It contains different modules with subheadings and titles. All the data has to be presented in that format. In module 1 is not part of CTD because it contains the administrative and prescribing information. Administrative information and also the region specific information will be part of module 1. Module 2 is an overview and summary of remaining modules like quality, safety, and efficacy. All these three, the summaries and overviews of all these 3 major has to be included in module 2, which is an overview and summary of remaining modules. Module 3 is a CMC module. It is a quality pharmaceutical documentation. CMC, chemistry, what is the chemistry involved in that product? From where we got, what is the source? What is how we develop the API? and what are the specifications for testing that API? What are the analytical procedures, stability of that particular API? Then coming to drug product. Same, again, how the drug product has been formulated. What are the manufacturing process parameters and characterization studies that you have done? All these manufacturing and controls are to be included in module 3. And module 4 is a preclinical studies. The preclinical study reports, pharmacology reports, all to be included in module 4. And module 5 is a clinical trial data. We need to put all the clinical trial data in the module 5. So including all these data, we have to submit to the health authorities for in the marketing applications. In US, as I told, in US it is called NDA, in EU it is marketing authorization application, and in Japanese it is Japanese new drug application. So this is, if we consider a new drug. What is about generic? Generic, actually in generic, as you know, we refer to the reference product. So no need to conduct the preclinical studies and also the clinical trials. We just need to ensure bioavailability BA/BE study reports has to be included in the module 5. So the major part in the generic will be in the CMC, the module 3 information. Next slide, please. So here I just taken the picture from the Google just to make you understand the amount of information which we submit in the CTD for a new drug and a generic. If you see the new drug, the clinical studies plays a major part in the module 5, which is actually to demonstrate safety and efficacy. So module 5 contains more information in a new drug, and also the module 4, preclinical study reports, then module 3, module 2, module 1. Whereas if you see the generic molecule, the major part is module 3, the quality information. We need to show the pharmaceutical equivalency to the reference product. The comparison studies, the pharmaceutical development, how we develop the formulation of a generic, all those will be part of quality information. Of course, next is BA/BE studies, which is a part of module 5. And sometimes non-clinical toxicological data, some little information is required, and module 1 information. Next slide, please. So I'm just showing some examples of ECTD, how it looks. The electronic common technical document. It is an electronic format. Okay, here is a dossier, how it looks exactly, what is the top level folder, and inside how it looks like the sequence numbering, and how the module 1 documents, what is the regional folder. If you see the CA, Canada, that is the regional folder. As I told previously, the module 1 contains the regional information. So the actual content files, next the module 1 backbone files, checksum file, and ECTD backbone file. This is the format how the ECTD looks like. Next slide, please. So this is a cycle where when the CDSCO India has given the guidelines for the format in 2009 and 2010, it is mandatory now. The dossier should be in the CTD format in India. Next slide, please. So here is the regulatory strategic planning. There are, as I told, the product life cycle contains different phases. In each phase of a pharmaceutical product development, regulatory strategy and planning is required. For example, the preclinical stage regulatory authority meetings are essential. So if you consider US, there is a meeting called pre-IND meeting with FDA, where is regulatory professional is involved, and they will develop a strategy, what to discuss and why to meet with FDA. Next, same in Europe also, there is one meeting called scientific advice meeting with EU national competent authorities. In Canada also, preclinical trial application consultation, pre-IND meeting in Japan. These are the preclinical stage regulatory authority meetings, wherein regulatory strategy and planning is required. Next is the clinical stage, human clinical trial stage, IND with US. We need to submit investigational new drug application in order to test the product in humans. First time in humans, we need to start the clinical trials. We have to first provide the IND, submit the IND in the US. all the clinical protocols and clinical study reports have to be prepared. All preclinical protocols and study reports has to be submitted. All CMC development reports, batch records, and stability reports have to be prepared. So all these strategic planning needs to be developed well before itself, so that there will be no obstacles. Next is investigational medicinal product dossier. In the clinical stage, we call it as IND in the US. That is, for the clinical trial application, we will submit the investigational new drug application, IND. The same terminology in EU, it is called IMPD, investigational medicinal product dossier. Even in Canada also, we call it as IMPD. And in Japan, it is investigational new drug application. Next slide, please. So the regulatory strategic planning, at what stage in the marketing application stage, and also in the submission phase, pre-approval phase, and post-approval phase, what kind of strategic planning is required, and what activities to begin, and how much time before we need to begin these activities in order to get the fast approvals. All these strategic planning need to be taken care by regulatory affairs professional. Next slide, please. On to next slide. Yeah, thank you. Regulatory strategic planning. We need to begin with end in the mind. So here I have mentioned some like summary basis of approvals. The links I have provided, like European public assessment reports. These are the publicly available released reports when a product is approved. When a new product is approved, they will assess, they will analyze and evaluate the data, and they will generate a report on what basis they have approved the drug product. So those reports are called summary basis of approvals in US, and EPAR, European Public Assessment Reports. So if you see these, if you when we plan to develop any product, any molecule, it is better first to see these things like EPAR and summary basis of approvals of past products, so that we can understand on what basis the health authorities are evaluating, what kind of data they are expecting. All those things we will get in mind, so that we will develop our plan and our strategy for developing a new product. Next slide, please. Yeah, here comes the product life cycle and regulatory affairs perspective. What are the different, at what phase, what kind of activity a regulatory professional has to do as a team, and what steps they need to ensure to keep the product in the market as much as possible, right? So starting from the development phase till the post-approval phase, there are so many activities we as a regulatory professional involves. So in the clinical development strategy, in the research phase, a pediatric investigation plan, clinical trial applications, and scientific advices, then orphan designation applications, submission strategies for the Europe, and marketing applications in the approval phase, publishing and lifecycle management after approval and during the approval. And once the product is approved and the product is commercialized, again, we need to continue the product, like we need continual improvement, and whatever the changes we do the product after the approval, all those needs to be informed or to be notified to the health authorities through variations. So those are called variations, notifications to health authority for the already approved products for any changes. And the renewals, every product needs to be renewed in almost all the regions to ensure safety and efficacy, and all the CMC information, up-to-date CMC information can also be submitted in some countries in the renewal file. Product reclassification also we can do. There are different kind of activities in each phase of a product life cycle. So we will talk about those in the next slides. Next slide, please. Here comes, first I will speak about the development phase, that is pre-approval phase. So we need, first is regulatory strategy, ensure the application of guidelines, advise on studies to demonstrate safety, quality, efficacy. So first is regulatory strategy and guidelines. We need to ensure that we are following the guidelines in developing a molecule so that we will not get any rejections or refuse in filings in the later stage. So first itself, we need to develop a strategy, ensuring all the guidelines are followed. Then involvement in the preparation of submission applications for clinical trials. As I said before, IND, clinical trial application, investigational medicinal product dossier. So in these, the preparation of documents, the regulatory person is involved. Then labeling and product information also, some team will develop the labeling part, and also we involve in quality audits, GMP of manufacturers, and qualified person statements. In all these activities, a regulatory professional is involved in the development phase. Next, when coming to the application and approval phase, that is the submission phase, the application procedures, electronic submissions, authority meetings. Sometimes we need to meet with authority and to discuss then progress of evaluation of our application. Once we submit the application, we need to evaluate where is our application and whether we received any queries. Before itself, we can expect some queries and we can plan so that we will respond to those queries immediately once we receive, and we will get the faster approvals. And sometimes we need to negotiate the approvals and product information with the agencies. These are the different activities during the application and approval phase. Next, coming to the post-approval phase, that is the life cycle management of a pharmaceutical product. So after approval, we need to ensure the compliance of the products through submission of variations. Suppose we used one API source, or we have used some specifications has been updated after approval. All those things, whatever the changes we do in the dossier after the approval, all those things we need to submit as a variation through or notification to the health authorities. Then renewals of the product. The usual, once we got approved of any marketing authorization, we get 5 years of authorization. Again, we need to re-register our product with some updated information in almost all the countries. Those are called renewals. We need to ensure the pharmacovigilance also. We have to get the safety update reports, adverse event reports, all those periodic safety update reports has to be submitted after the approval. Then product information review. Sometimes what happens, the product information sections will get updated by the innovator company or for the reference product. So we need to make sure that all the product information of the reference product has to be followed by a generic. So those things also we need to submit as a variation. And for the new indications or new formulations, some products off-label use will be there. Like it will be, it is approved for one indication and later it will be used for another indication. Again, we need to do some studies and prove that it is good for the new indication also. All those data has to be provided. And considering that in different regions, there are several different kind of applications which we need to submit. And regulatory intelligence. What is regulatory intelligence? I will talk about that in the next slides. Actually, what does the future hold? We need to ensure the daily regulatory updates in US, Europe, ICH, all those daily updates has to be followed, maintained, analyzed, and then continuous improvement of a product. So here I got some snapshots from one good article which basically shows the different activities or steps involved by regulatory affairs in different steps of a pharmaceutical product. So I have given the reference link at the end of the presentation. It's a very good article. So when we submit it, first we advise on the product development before the submission of IND. IND will be submitted. Once it gets approved, we will submit the new NDA application. And once it is approved, we will do the renewal. So in all these steps, and what kind of activity as a regulatory affairs professional we need to ensure, all this has been very well explained in this article. Next slide, please. Coming to the regulatory intelligence. Regulatory intelligence has given a paradigm shift in product lifecycle. So in general, regulatory intelligence, what is regulatory intelligence? It is monitoring, gathering, and analyzing of publicly available and experience-based regulatory information to develop a strategy for time and cost efficient drug development. What happened? We have some past experience, like we already have like 20 products or 30 products which are submitted to US, Europe, all the regions. And there are some molecules which are pipeline, which are in the development stage. Some molecules we need to do post-approval variations or renewals. So we will gather all the information from the previous experience, and also we gather the info.
So next is regulatory intelligence. Why regulatory intelligence is required? Because the regulations are constantly changing. Today one regulation and tomorrow it will be different, because this pandemic situations, we don't know when the life will change. Because of these, some emergency authorization use guidelines and some new guidelines can be developed because of the situations. So the regulations are not stable, they are constantly changing at a faster pace, and new technologies are coming up. And also the companies has as a longer goal, like expansion and harmonization, and increase the transparency is increased now, which also increases the scrutiny, and the information is overloaded. Like we are getting a number of like huge information we can browse and we can get that information, right? So all these we have to capture, we have to analyze, and we have to continuously improve the company's perspective. So that's why the regulatory intelligence is required. It is required to develop a strategy for time and cost efficient drug development. Because once a product is developed, suppose any company, that is the first submission, it will take long time for the preparation of a dossier. That company already completed 10 dossiers, submitted 10 dossiers and received 10 approvals. The 11th one will be easy because they have the past experience and they know what regulations are required, and they know what the health authorities will ask you further beyond the guidelines or about your product. So that kind of experience, the lessons learned, you have to capture in your website, in your database, and you have to analyze or scrutinize those to get the proper information for a proper strategy and a product final outcome. Previously, country level regulations or country level approvals are there. Now, big MNCs, big pharma companies, Pfizer, Sanofi, GSK, Novartis, they are like global multinational companies. They have huge amount of data, which they do retrospective data analysis, not prospective. They analyze before itself. They're like retrospective data analysis, which is a regulatory consultation on prospective data generation. Then that, based on that data, they will execute. They will involve in early discussions and also collaborate with other departments, as I mentioned, in the integrated drug development team. So that regulation execution is based on the intelligence information and dependence on clinical trials, relevance of data in the real world setting. So whatever the data they have received, they will capture, they will analyze, and that data they will use for the multinational or global submissions. Next slide, please. So what is the process of regulatory intelligence? First, we will collect the data, we will collect the information, that is the input from different websites, different journals, health authority websites, and also the past experience, past submissions, lessons learned from the previous submissions. All those information we will take as an input, we capture in a software or the Excel sheet or trackers. As a big MNCs, we having some softwares wherein we will put we will just feed the input, and it will automatically analyze or process that information, which is proper, which is correct, and which is wrong, which is required. So all these analysis will take place. Then a final output or strategy will be developed. For example, we have a tracker wherein we have information of guidelines for all the countries, like US, Europe, GCC countries, JAPAC countries, everything. All the information, we already have it in our tracker. So once any submission has to take place, we will see those, what kind of information is actually required. Suppose a GMP has to be submitted, or a manufacturing license has to be submitted, or any stability data, because the stability requirements are different with respect to different zones. Brazil requires Zone 4B stability data, India requires also Zone 4A stability data. So all those intelligence information based on the past experience and based on the websites and based on the health authority guidelines, those will automatically be capture, and once it is required, we will pull out the statistical report. Accordingly, we will strategize the submission and we will proceed ahead. That is the main importance and the process of regulatory intelligence. Next slide, please. So again, regulatory affairs, if you are working in a big companies, there are two sets of regulatory affairs. That is the global regulatory affairs and the local regional regulatory affairs. Suppose we are working in Bangalore. Okay, Bangalore is a corporate regulatory affairs office where we prepare, we strategize, and we prepare documents for submissions to all the regions like to US, Europe, India, Japan, all the countries. So what we do, we develop a common technique like CTD dossier. We prepare the dossier dealing with all the manufacturers, all the stakeholders. Once the dossier is prepared, that dossier will be distributed to the local team. Suppose, for example, I want to register my product in Saudi Arabia. What we need to do, we cannot directly deal with the regulatory authority. Every country has their own regulation that their particular national representative should be there in that particular country. For example, US, they want their own US FDA representative from that country. And also Saudi national should be there for Saudi, UAE national should be there for UAE. All those national or regional affiliates, we will submit the dossier to the regional affiliates. In fact, they will submit to the health authority. They will coordinate the submission for that particular company and they will get it approved. Once they get it approved, they will distribute or they will inform to all the departments, to the regulatory affairs team, to the corporate team. So it is a vice versa. All the information needs to go to the local team and from the local team to the global team. So this is a cycle, the global regulatory affairs and the local regulatory affairs. So here I just captured one picture, the strategic activities and what are the operational activities as a regulatory affairs professional. As I told before, strategic decisions has to be taken from the starting of a product development and scientific advice, the registration strategy, which markets we can go quickly, because US and Europe are very stringent. So each and every company has their own strategy and they has their own regions. For example, when I worked in Julfar, the previous company, their major market is Saudi market. So their focus is on Saudi. But when you take a multinational company, their focus will be first in US, Europe, and slowly to all the regions based on the dossier which they developed for US and Europe. So next is dossier and technical file writing and electronic dossier publishing. All these are different strategic and operational activities of a regulatory affairs. Next slide. Yeah. These are the previous slide, please. So the various roles within regulatory affairs and what an average day at work, what work we do in a day and what kind of activities or things we do in a particular day and what are the different roles within the regulatory affairs. If you see the different roles, there are all the activities we do, it starts with project management, like planning, initiating, executing, monitoring, all those activities as a project management. Regulatory project management is one of the sub-team inside the regulatory affairs, and there is a submission management which basically deals with the submission to the health authority. They prepare the documents, they will evaluate or quality check of the documents, and then maintenance of a product, maintenance, management of a product. Once a product is approved, we have the approval. After 5 years, again, we need to submit some documents. So once the product is approved and it is in the market, the team which take care of that particular products which are already approved, that team called as life cycle management team. And also CMC specialist. What is meant by CMC specialist? The specialist which writes the documents of CMC, part of the dossier, like chemistry, manufacturing, controls, the module 3 part of the CTD. Those people are called CMC specialists. Preclinical or clinical specialists, the person who have experience in the toxicological reports writing and toxicology studies, those are called preclinical specialists. Clinical specialist is again human trials data, all those statistical trial data, who can write the summaries, or those are called clinical specialists. And labeling experts. The labeling is very important part. Labeling is actually required. There is a separate team for labeling preparation also. There is the regulatory overall preparations also. There will be one team. Product responsible. Sometimes what happens, big companies will be having like 100 products in 100 regions. They segregate the products into different team members. members. One person will be handling 2 products of that particular region. Any regulatory authority submission, any query related to that particular product will be handled by that particular team. That is called product responsible team. And as I told previously, there is a regulatory intelligence team. That team's responsibility is basically to collect the data from different regions from the past experience submissions, and to analyze that data and to provide that data in a statistical reports or in a PDF format to the team who are working in the next submissions. So these are the different roles within the regulatory affairs. And what regulatory affairs person do in an average day? Everything is project management, coordinating, summarizing, writing, reading, interpreting, reading the regulations. So considering the various roles as we discussed now, there are different activities like communication. We need to write emails to different stakeholders. We have to collect the data from the R&D, and we need to collect the information from the supply chain. So we need to write emails, collaborations, meetings. Sometimes we need to meet with health authority, like pre-IND meeting or IND meeting. So there is some timelines also for those meetings. When we have to provide our report before we meet the regulatory authority professionals. So we have to develop those reports before itself, and we need to submit those reports also to them before we meet the health authority for discussing on any part of the submission. So like meetings, collaborations, communication, interpretation, these are the different work activities of an average day of a regulatory affairs professional. So being sometimes making a perfection, we need to work more than hours than required for bringing the complaints, for preparing the good documents, for meeting the timelines. These are the different activities and different roles in the regulatory affairs. Next slide, please. So I am just summarizing the role of RA, whatever we discussed till now. So as per me, it is not a boring job. It is very interesting job. And you can also feel the same, I believe, based on the discussion what we had now. And what is RA and what is RA is not. Because many people in different departments have some something in mind about RA, that just they collect the documents from different departments and they will submit to health authority and they will take the name. That is not the actual part. What is RA? RA has to lead and own. That means we are ahead of competition, because people are like in severe competition. We need to develop the molecule and we need to launch our product as soon as possible to get the pennies and to get the amount and to run the company. So we should be ahead in the competition. If we need to be ahead in the competition, we need to, RA has to take the ownership, and they have to collect, they need to ensure the data is proper, and they have to ensure faster and quicker approvals. It is a strategic function and inside and outside the organization. It's not a post office. It's not to compromise on any lower standards than desirable for the regulatory authorities. And it is a very collaborative, and we can maintain different contacts with the different department people. We are here to find the solutions. We learn the new things. So RA, as a summary, it is defining the needs, planning, strategizing, and finding the solutions. Basic overall summary is RA, they have to get the product on the market quickly, meet the legislative requirements, and present the company position in the best light to maximize the competitiveness, as I told, keep the product on the market for a long time. That is the major role of a RA. With this, I finish my presentation. And next slide, please. I here have some knowledge checks. So just for understanding purpose, here I mentioned some questions. Please try to answer these questions.
In the chat box, you can type it to option 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which of the following is the post-approval regulatory submission?
I can see correct answers in the chat. Thank you very much. So NDA, new drug application, biologic license application, and investigative new drug, all these are pre-approval submissions, and renewals, variations, And for any new indications, those are the post-approval submissions. Next slide, please. So India is dash of ICH. Is an observer or a permanent member? What?
So, legislative observer.
Most of the people are putting 3, but okay.
India is a legislative observer of ICH.
Yes, it is option number 4.
Yes,
It is the
four.
legislative observer.
Yes, sir.
Next slide.
High-level documents summaries are to be presented in which part of dossier as per CTD?
So the high-level summaries are part of module 2.
Yeah.
Whatever we discuss, we write in module 3, module 4, module 5 about the quality, safety, efficacy, the overall thing has to be summarized, and we need to provide the high-level summary to health authorities, which is a part of module 2 as per common technical document. I thank you very much to everyone who have participated on Sunday and for patience listening. Now I am okay to accept any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So these were the references which Mr. Lalit has taken. So is it fine, Mr. Lalit, if we can share the PDF copy to the participants?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, we will be sharing the PDF copy. So thank you, Mr. Lalit, for your valuable, information that you have provided. Even today, I have learned a lot of things which I was not aware of. And I mean, I really appreciate your efforts that you have put in your preparing your presentation and the way you presented. I mean, I'm very happy that, each and every student will be benefited from it if they have taken this webinar seriously. Just to start, before starting any questionnaires, we want to just introduce, we have already started some courses, online courses from Chariot Consultants, and yesterday was our first session in which we just started the module 1. So if any student is interested to get enrolled in our courses, we will be providing a kind of bridge between the academics and the industry. So you can contact us. The fees that we have kept is very minimal, and you can, take the advantage of this pandemic situation. When you are sitting at home, you can save your time, and you can learn a lot of things by getting enrolled in our course. So we are open to the questions now.